Hey everybody, welcome back to I Know a Guy. If you're new here, my name's Anthony. I'm a business profit advocate. On this show, we interview entrepreneurs, business owners, professionals, and people just doing cool things. For example, today we're meeting with Terry Tucker. He is a man who has reinvented himself across multiple careers, from NCAA basketball player to SWAT hostage negotiator, and he's faced incredible challenges with resilience and strength. How you doing today, Terry?
I'm great, Anthony. Thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah, I liked our chat the other day, and I think a lot of people need to hear your story. You've you've done a lot, so I'm trying to even decide where to begin. So how about where are you at? Where you live?
My wife and I live in Denver, Colorado now. We've lived all over the U.S., Cincinnati, Houston, Texas, Santa Barbara, California. But right now it's Denver, Colorado, and I think we're here to stay.
Is Denver your favorite place or just the favorite now?
My wife and I are both from the Midwest, so we're kind of used to the winters that are gloom and doom kind of thing. So, the great thing about Denver is you have the winter, but you can get 25 inches of snow today, and tomorrow it'll be 50 degrees and sunny. So we like the seasons. I think the most beautiful place we've ever lived is probably Santa Barbara, California. Never gets hot, never gets cold. Mountains right up against the ocean. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Hmm. Yeah, never made it there. Never made it to Denver. I'm gonna have to try that. I like the snow, but I also like not snow. So
Oh, I hear you.
yeah, I like having both. But so what's fun in Denver? What do you like to do out there?
All kinds of things. I mean, you're an hour away if you like to ski, snowboard, anything like that, to go up into the mountains, even in the summertime, going to Vail or Breckenridge or something like that, even when there's no snow is an absolute blast. Estes Park is also another place that we enjoy going. The University of Colorado is about an hour away. But Denver, there's all kinds of museums, there's all sports teams, it's just like any major metropolitan city. There's all kinds of fun things to do.
I got you. I'll have to come check it out and do all that stuff because I love to travel. I like trying new things, but that all sounds fun. So it's not too far away. Iowa and Denver. I think it's probably about 10 hours if I imagine.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's a Midwest car trip. If it's under
There you
15
go.
hours, you're driving. So so yeah. So a little bit of that I learned about you from our talk and from everything that I've read. You've reinvented yourself multiple times throughout your career. From marketing, police work to consulting and coaching. What's the common thread or value that's guided you through these, diverse transitions, and how did it help you face each new learning curve?
Yeah, I really kind of have to go back to my parents. I'm the oldest of three boys. We were all college athletes. One of my brothers was drafted by the Cavaliers, the National Basketball Association. But our parents really taught us the value of loving each other, of caring for each other, and of supporting each other. And you're right, I've done a lot of things in my life, but if people ask me what I did, I would say I was a police officer. That's really the thing I felt I was supposed to do. Both of my brothers are in high school education. So I think our parents really instilled in us the value of service, the value of giving back and things like that. And that's been an incredibly motivating part of my life. It's not really, and I know this is an entrepreneurial kind of show, and you're trying to start a business, you're trying to make money, you're trying to do all that stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely that's an amazing thing. I've had a couple of businesses myself. But I found in my life that it's really more about what you give as opposed to what you get. Using your unique gifts and talents, whatever those are, to help a business, to help a community, to help an individual, whatever that is. So my parents really taught us the value of serving as a guide for our lives.
Yeah, that's true, and that's a universal a law. It feels like for people because that's been something that's went back, since people. You have in the Bible, you reap what you sow. You have karma. You have more recently Zig Ziglar. You help enough people get what you want, you'll get what you want. So it's important to realize that you can lean into it and you can embrace what's going to happen, or you can kind of try and fight it, go upstream with it. So that's awesome. So you had a couple non-pedestrian jobs. So SWAT hostage negotiator. You would have had to maintain your composure. I can imagine that would be hard under intense pressure. So how did your experience in that role influence the way you approach your other life challenges?
Yeah, a lot of it is about communicating. And if you think about SWAT, especially negotiating, you're basically trying to figure out, and many times we had no idea why we were there. Why did this person grab a gun and barricade themselves, whatever what was going on. And the overarching theme was always trust. And that's true of any relationship, parent, child, husband, wife, boss, subordinate. If you don't have trust in that relationship, it's not going to be a very good relationship at all. And the other part of it was communication. And I remember when I first started on the SWAT team, we were given a formula, and the formula was 73855. And that had to do with how we as human beings communicate with each other. So 7% are the words that we use. And think how many times you've said something like, oh, I wish I hadn't said that, or I wish I would have said it differently. That's only 7% of how that message comes across. 38% is the tone of voice that you use with that message. Are you real calm? Are you real excited? Are you kind of down and depressed? Whatever that ends up being, that's 38% of how that message is delivered. And then 55%, so more than half of how that message comes across, is your body language and your facial expressions. And the reason we were given that is because many times when we were negotiating with somebody, you had a gun, you were barricaded in the room. I was not in the room with you trying to get you out. So we didn't have the luxury of that 55% of saying something to an individual and see them kind of roll their eyes like, oh, what an idiot. I can't believe he said that to me. So we had to get good at figuring things out, certainly based on what people were saying, but also what they weren't saying and how they were saying it.
That's interesting. Coming from a sales background, there's all those techniques like that 55% you're talking about. There's mirroring techniques, there's ways of engaging, and you're right, you wouldn't have that because you're not going to be in the room with them.
Yeah.
What did they have any kind of mandatory readings that they would have you read? Like, your How to Win Friends and Influence People has a really good part about, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he's a criminal. He looked at himself as the good guy, and you're like, why are they always after me? Was there mandatory readings like that they had, going into the SWAT hostage negotiator role?
There really wasn't readings. The way we used to train, and we train all the time, was there were plenty of things in the newspaper and online about different scenarios. And so we would practice the scenario, and then we had a psychologist that would work with us. He wouldn't come with us on call-ups, but he would work with us during our trainings. And he might do a scenario, and where you really learned is not in the scenario. You learned in the debrief because the psychologist might say to you, hey, Terry, did you ever think that guy might have schizophrenia and they were off their medication? Oh, no, that never occurred to me and things like that. So it was that constant just building on itself of different psychological problems, issues, traumas that people might have, diseases that they were being controlled by medication that they weren't on, and that's why they did what they did and things like that. So you kind of got a crash course in pharmacology and psychology regarding the different things people might be on or not on and how they would react if they weren't on their medication and things like that. So it's really more the debrief and the experts, the guys that have been on the team for 15 years and had seen all kinds of things, or the psychologist that would be, man, I never thought about that. And that certainly moved over to our life as a police officer. When you're on the street, you meet somebody, you might think one thing, but now you've got more information, and the more information you can have in anything, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a cop, whether you're a parent, the more information you can arm yourself with, the better you are at what you do.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. So one thing a lot of people, no matter whether they're, entrepreneurs, business owners, or just people living their day-to-day life, um, a little bit about you that I was reading and heard you speak about is facing a rare form of cancer. It's an extraordinary challenge. Everybody's going through their own challenges. We all have our own crosses to bear. But you mentioned choosing to embrace the pain and using it to go stronger. Can you share a specific moment or practice that's helped you mentally push through those dark days?
Yeah, I mean, when I was first diagnosed, I was told I would be dead in 2 years. And when you're 51 years old and your only child is in high school, that's a pretty sobering thing to be told. And I thought, well, you've given me a death sentence. Maybe I can try to turn that death sentence into a life sentence. I mean, none of us have any control over death. And one of the things that is very important to me is the realization that I'm going to die. You know, the old Stoic philosophers used to talk about the Latin phrase memento mori, meaning remember death, not for the sake that you're going to die, but for the focus that it gives you on actually living your purpose, living your life. And so many people, I think, Anthony, just kind of muddle through their lives. They never figure out or even contemplate what it means to be great or good at anything in their life. And there's an entrepreneur out in California by the name of Ed Milet, and he talks about the four types of people in the world. And when I first heard this, I was like, I got to think about this for a while to see if it resonates with me. But the first group he talks about are the unmotivated. And he said that's the vast majority of people you will run across in your life. The second group he talks about are the motivated. And he talks about that in terms of a carrot and stick approach to life. If I do this, I will get that. He says it's kind of low level, but it's in a very effective way for a lot of people to live a really good life. The third group he talks about are the inspirational people. The word inspiration coming from two words, in spirit. So if you're an inspirational person, you move people with your energy. And then the last group he talks about are the aspirational people, where people aspire to be like you. And the more I thought about it, I kind of think that people in my life sort of set up that way. They're, a lot of people that are just muddling through life. And sometimes if I'm speaking, I'll tell that story and be like, all right, show of hands, how many people are unmotivated? Nobody ever raises their hand. Nobody ever admits that they are an unmotivated individual. But there are so many people out there, Anthony, that they just never grasp the fact that they're here for a reason and they have a purpose in their life.
Yeah, that's true, and it's heartbreaking because you don't have to be stuck at that person. You don't have to be unmotivated forever. You can find that motivation. You can become the second, third, fourth, or wherever you aspire to be. So that's awesome. And then you wrote a book, Sustainable Excellence. You discuss principles of leading an extraordinary life. Which principle has been the most impactful for you personally?
I think the one that's been most impactful is the last one, and that is love is the most important word in any language. And especially guys, we don't talk about love. We don't talk about, I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm talking about love in terms of willing the good of the other. You just want what's best for other human beings, other people in your life, and certainly what's best for you as well. So that's been incredibly impactful to me. But the principle, I guess, that most people resonate with, and I find this kind of interesting. I put it in the book because it's something I'm not proud of, but I've done it in my life. And the principle is this: most people think with their fears and their insecurities instead of using their minds. And I know I've done that in my life. I know I wanted to start a business or get involved in a project, and you kind of pull back. You're like, ooh, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not smart enough, or maybe I don't have enough information, or what will people say about me if I fail? That's thinking with our fears and our insecurities. That's not thinking with our minds. And whenever I get the opportunity to speak, especially to younger people, I always tell them, if there's something in your heart, something in your soul that you believe you're supposed to do, but it scares you, go ahead and do it. Because at the end of your life, the things you're going to regret are not going to be the things you did. They're going to be those things you didn't do. And by then it's going to be too late to go back and do them.
Yeah, that's that's true, and those are hard learned lessons unless you can take from somebody else and actually let it change who you are. So no, for sure, and that's even big in the entrepreneur community where it's like I'm not good enough, I can't do this, somebody's already done it, I can't do it as well as, which is the issue, like you said, is that's probably true at first, but you're not going to get to that part unless you start doing it. So that's huge. I like that. So would you say that love is what inspired you to write your book, your Sustainable Excellence? Was that the main driving force?
Not really. I never wanted to write a book. I never expected to write a book. There's sort of an old joke that says when we talk to God, it's called prayer. When God talks to us, it's called schizophrenia. So God never said, "Hey, Terry, write a book." But I think what God did was put enough people in my path that started making the same suggestion over and over and over again. And I think I'm old enough now, a little bit more mature, that it's like I got to pay attention when those things happen in your life. And I would say that to your audience. If people are making the same suggestion over and over, you ought to pay attention to that. So, sustainable excellence was really born out of two conversations I had. One was with a former player. I coached girls high school basketball when we lived in Texas. And one of my players had moved to the area in Colorado where my wife and I live with her fiance. And the four of us had dinner one night. And I remember saying to her after dinner, "Hey, I'm really excited that you're living close and I can watch you find and live your purpose." And she got real quiet for a while. And then she looked at me and she said, "Well, coach, what do you think my purpose is?" I said, "I have absolutely no idea what your purpose is, but that's what your life should be about. Finding the reason you were put on the face of this earth. And there is a reason, using your unique gifts and talents and living that reason." So that was one conversation. And then I had a young man in college who reached out to me on social media and he said, "What do you think are the most important things that I should learn, not to just be successful in my job or in business, but to be successful in life?" And Anthony, I didn't want to give him that, get up early, work hard, help others. I didn't want to give him sort of the cliches that we all know. I wanted to see if I could go deeper with him. So I spent some time taking some notes and kind of had these 10 thoughts, these 10 ideas, these 10 principles. And so I sent them to him. And then I stepped back and I was like, well, I got a life story that fits underneath this principle, or I know somebody whose life emulates that principle. So literally during the 4 to 5 month period I was healing after I had my leg amputated because of my cancer, I sat down at the computer every day and I built stories, and they're real stories about real people underneath each of the principles. And that's how sustainable excellence came to be.
That's awesome. So everybody out there has challenges, like I mentioned earlier. We all have our crosses to bear. You can't really speak to everybody on that individual level where you have time to sit down, take notes, and really dig in. So if somebody is struggling out there, how do they find purpose when they're facing whatever their difficult challenges in life? What would you say to that?
I guess I would say a couple of things. Number one, everybody, all of us have unique gifts and talents. If you told me to go be an accountant, I would fail miserably at that job. That's not where my gifts and talents lie. So I think the first thing would be, what are your gifts and talents? Identify those things that you are good at. The second part of this is a story I'm going to tell you. So Jesse Itzler used to be, might still be, I'm not 100% sure, part owner of the Atlanta Hawks in the National Basketball Association. And he's married to a woman by the name of Sarah Blakely. And Sarah Blakely started a woman's undergarment company called Spanx, and it's a multi-$100 million plus company. And Itzler tells the story that when she started that company, she had one prototype and $5,000. She'd been a door-to-door fax salesperson. We don't even use faxes for the most part anymore, but that's what she did. And the point of his story was, if you wait until everything is perfect. So if Sarah would have waited until she understood the HR and the legal and the distribution and the manufacturing and all, she would have waited for everything to line up and then start the company, his point was somebody else would have jumped in and started a similar type company and probably outdone her. His point was, wherever you are, just start. Figure it out as you go along. Add the pieces that you need. Okay, I'm to a point where I need a marketing director or I need an HR director or something like that. Add those people at that point in time in your life, but just start. And I think one of the biggest things that prevents us from starting is fear. We're afraid. What are people going to say? Going back to what we talked about before. What are people going to say? Maybe I'm not smart. What if I fail? It's okay. You're going to fail. You're going to fail along the way. But Estee Lauder or the Mary Kay, the pink car lady who gives everybody a pink car when they get so much cosmetics sold, talks about failing forward. Fail forward. If you make a mistake and you fail, that's okay. Do it forward so that you learn something, pick yourself up and keep moving forward.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. And, a lot of people have heard that before, but you can't hear it enough. because it takes multiple repetition before he finally sets in. So keep failing. Know that it's okay to fail. Everybody that's ever succeeded has failed and will continue to fail. So whatever your level of success is, just know that it's going to come after failure. So you got to get through it. So is there anything that I failed to ask that you really wanted to mention?
I guess let me just say this. And if you remember nothing else that I said today, remember this. And I think it kind of piggybacks on what we were just talking about. It's more important who you work with and who you work for than it is the work that you do. Find people that care about you. Find people that are willing to invest in you. Find people that want to see you succeed and hitch your wagon to those people and climb your mountains together.
That's awesome advice to end on. There's so many people out there that are willing to help you and are, very good at what they're doing, and they're all about pouring into others, and those are the people that you want to spend your time around. There's
Absolutely.
that saying, your network is your net worth. So
Right.
if you're around people that are all positive, you're going to go up. If you're around people that are just going to continue to drag you down, then that's exactly where you're going to end up. So awesome. Is you have so much more to talk about. I know we really talked high level at most things. Where can other people hear more about you? Where can they, learn or hear other stories or deeper conversations that you've had?
Yeah, so I have a website, a blog called Motivational Check. Every day I put up a thought for the day. My social media links are there. All the podcasts that I've been fortunate enough to be a guest on are there. And you can leave me a message. And I love hearing from people. That's all at motivationalcheck.com.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to post that because I'm gonna have to go there myself. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this again just to take notes because I wanted to give you my attention, but there's some stuff in there that I need to retouch on because, like I said, you can't hear it enough. But perfect. I appreciate you coming on, Terry. I recommend everybody go listen to more and more of what he said. Listen to his previous podcast. Engage, take this advice, give it a shot. What's the worst that's going to happen? Try it out. If you're more positive for a week and see how that works out in your life, then it's probably going to be a really good week. So go out there. But again, if anybody else would like to be interviewed, feel free to reach out to me. I'm also going to have my link tree in the description. It's going to have all the places I post this, and it's also going to have my calendar link. I'd love to have a conversation with all of you. But other than that, Terry, again, really appreciate you coming on, taking the time to speak with us. Let's all get out there, be more positive, and get to know some more people. All right.
Well, thank you, Anthony. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.